Hi, and thank you guys so much for joining me on YouTube. I loved all of the comments that you guys would actually be interested to and like subscribe to my videos and wanted to hear me talk more about the CIA declassified files. So I figured it would be probably a really good place to start in the beginning, explaining the CIA, explaining FOIA, explaining Stargate, and all of those things. So if you already know about all those things, you might want to skip this video. Feel free to comment some topic suggestions from Stargate that I can talk about in the next video. And same for everybody watching this video. Feel free to comment that at the end. Again, I just wanted to start from the beginning, a little bit about me. No, I'm not just some crazy person on the internet falling down a rabbit hole of pseudosciences. These were actually scientifically studied and proven phenomena through the CIA. I'm a very educated young adult. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, which, by the way, that's where I learned how scientific research is conducted. So I know actually what the protocol is that scientists go through, and know the experiments were not faked because people would lose their credibility, they would lose their licensures. That's not it. So again, I did have that background in psychology. I actually got accepted to and went to and passed a year of law school until I realized that it sucked and I hated that. That's a different story for another time. But I actually have had a lot of really unexplainable phenomena occur to me throughout the course of my life. And me being a logical, educated person, I researched everything to figure out what was going on because I couldn't find anything on the topics that was happening. So it actually just so happened that everything that I had believed, that I had thought in, was actually in the CIA database. So it's not that I was just fishing for documents. I actually had these thoughts, and a lot of them are true, and a lot of them that I had researched, that like manifestation, for example, there are documents about manifestation as well. So people on the spiritual path, religious path, it's all different terms. As long as you're open-minded, they're all different terms for the same thing. So it's essentially just a way of explaining how the world is working, how the world works around us, and we're still trying to figure that out. So my next point, all of these documents are scientific documents, research, and reports conducted by some of the most renowned scientists and research institutes around at the time. They were not conducted by the CIA. They were very different. The CIA is the Central Intelligence Agency. Their job is to gather intelligence on anything that could interfere with national security, and it's also their job to get information from other countries regarding their intelligence and what they're studying. So that being their job, they want to get the most accurate information to keep the nature of the country and protected, obviously, protection. So they did all this research. They conducted experiments via actual scientists. They reached out to very renowned scientists such as Russell Targ. They worked with the Monroe Institute, and all of those research studies I've talked about as well. They're not just one study. The actual database for the Stargate program has 12,478 documents, I think, for it if you search. So there's actually a lot. So again, I am not just some crazy person on the internet. I'm somebody that's trying to explain things because I did go to law school and I understand how these laws work. It is the Freedom of Information Act that is making all of these documents come out. It's not like some ploy. It's not something to cover anything up. Essentially, the Freedom of Information Act, which is the FOIA, F-O-I-A, it was instituted in 1967, and it affords the public the right to any records from any federal agency, provided that they don't fall under any of the exceptions. And essentially one of the exceptions is that they were under 25 years old. So all the documents that come out are old, and that's why we talk about them, because they are over 25 years old. So that's one part debunked. And I'm going to include right here the 9 exceptions for when information would not be released. And a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act, a request can be made about any agency record for any government agency. So if it's not already on their website, you can inquire about it and they will send it to you. So why is everybody talking about all of this stuff now? Why is everybody talking about these documents now, right? Because, again, as I mentioned, the documents have to be over 25 years old to be released, right? And they were available for the public to read. However, they were only found in the National Archives. Kind of inconvenient for like most people that can't just go to the National Archives and spend weeks there reading all of the documents, because as I had mentioned, there were over 12,000 in Stargate alone. So it was very inconvenient, very hard for people to actually read it. So to make it more accessible and more of a democratic system, documents were put online on the Electronic Reading Room in 2017, okay? So that's when people were able to start reading all of these for themselves and making connections for themselves. And people like me, I didn't have time back then. When they first got released, I didn't know anything about that. I was still in college. I was, a little immature, whatever. And I wasn't focusing on all of those things. So now that I have more time, the quarantine hit and I had a lot more time, and I started researching all of the topics that I had always thought about. So I wanted to find some more scientific proof. As I'd mentioned, I do experience a lot of the phenomena that I have talked about in these documents, that are talked about in the documents, such as psychic messages, things like that. I'm actually on a psychic researching team, psychic investigating team, whatever you want to call it. And we work on cold cases essentially throughout the country. Sometimes we work with law enforcement, sometimes we work with families, and essentially we get messages and we try to solve cases. So I've actually gotten a lot of really accurate visions, I guess you could say, messages, regarding some of the information of the case that was never released to the public, that was never told to us. And it's just, I don't know what else to say. I've personally firsthand experienced this. You don't have to believe me. That's not the point of this. The point of this is that I've personally experienced it and there's science backing it up. I am just kind of explaining things through my journey as well to help everybody else too, if you're interested. So again, let's jump back into some of the scientists that conducted the research. Russell Targ is a physicist. He was a pioneer in the development of the laser. He was a pioneer in the proven phenomena of remote viewing, which I can talk about in a later video. And he was also the co-founder of the Stanford Research Institute, which also did work with the CIA. In addition to the Monroe Institute. So the Monroe Institute is actually the world's leading education center for the study of human consciousness, very well known for their program, the Gateway Process, which was an enormous part of the CIA's Stargate program. Cool. So what's Stargate? I know I'd mentioned that Stargate encompasses a lot of the phenomena like precognition, clairvoyance, telepathy, psychokinesis, astral projection, basically anything supernatural, okay? So why were they studying this? Because essentially there were uses for it in national security. There were uses for it in surveillance, and they wanted to militarize it, essentially. So they wanted to study how it worked and how to use it. And essentially they figured out that it worked, right? And that's why the program was still running, but they couldn't figure out what made it work. They couldn't figure out how or why it worked. So that's another topic for another day, but essentially they had done all of this research, they proved the phenomena, and however, they stopped the Stargate program, the research, when it became no longer a secret to the public. People began finding out about it, so obviously they declassified it and stopped that, because the point of keeping it secret was so that nobody knew about it, and they weren't able to figure out how it worked. So to our knowledge, they had stopped the Stargate program in 1995. Okay. There have been a bunch of spin-off programs, which I can also talk about, so we'll go on that, and we'll obviously keep seeing every year as the documents are released each year after that, because again, like I said, every document has to be over 25 years old, so every year they release new documents. So yeah, like I had mentioned, the FOIA database, when you search Stargate, there are 12,478 documents that are found. So there's a lot just on Stargate. Again, it wasn't just like a single experiment. It wasn't just like anything. Some of them are news clippings, yes. Some of them are reports, some of them are studies, and you just really have to dig through it. So essentially, the way that if you want to read these documents for yourself, I post the links in every single video I do on TikTok, I have a Google Classrooms that has all of the links in it, so you can go and actually access them by category as to the ones that I found that were pretty good, because a lot of them contain absolutely nothing. And essentially I feel like that's kind of a tactic to like sway people from reading them, because it takes a lot of time to go through all of them. Alright, now that we've covered the basics of the CIA, the FOIA, and Stargate, which is essentially all that I talk about on the CIA Declassified Files, we next are going to get into some of the topics regarding the phenomena in the Stargate category. So like I had mentioned, precognition, clairvoyance, telepathy, psychokinesis, astral projection, UFOs, and basically anything supernatural, anything that I've talked about. Feel free to leave a comment in the section below. I'd love to have your opinions as to what I talk about first. So essentially, in the series continuing here, I'm going to talk about like a specific phenomena and show you guys like screenshots of the documents and talk about them more, into like compiling into like more of a consolidated information, I guess you could say. So yeah, thanks so much for joining me on YouTube. I'm so glad that more people are interested in learning more about the CIA documents. I really love that, and if anybody's as deep in this as me, I don't know if that's even possible, because I'm quite literally in a rabbit hole. But if anybody is as deep in this as me, I actually made masks on Redbubble. So the way that I always screenshot the documents on TikTok and I highlight them with my marker and my like photos or whatever, I added that photo and I like blurred it a little bit so it was just like kind of transparent, like opaque, whatever you want to call it. And I put the text, "Read the CIA Declassified Documents" on it, and it's really cute, and I bought it in a mask. There's other things too. It was on Redbubble, so if you guys are interested in that, please let me know. I'd love to share the link. I would literally love to have so many people walking around with those masks. Like, I would love more people to talk about this. So again, have a great one. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm so excited for the next one. Thanks. Bye.